For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, and I hope you have read it, Keith put, I imagine it took a very long time to put together this great article where he talked to many executives across the NBA, GMs, assistant GMs, high front office executives, both conferences, East and West, about just the experience of dealing with Boston in trade talks, whether or not teams have actually made trades with Danny Ainge, whether they've worked to make trades with Danny Ainge, and whether Danny Ainge is in fact greedy and asks for too much. Some of these questions that we in the media have been asking for a while, or just assuming based on things that we've read in the past. Keith got to the crux of it, and agreeing on the basis of anonymity, got a whole lot of honesty from people, which was a really fun read. I encourage people go and check out. I will tell you, and Keith, I want you to tell people all about the article, but I will just tell you my initial impressions of it were: 1, it was fascinating; 2, it was funny; 3, even as someone who I think has an understanding, a grasp to some level of the inner workings of the Celtics, hierarchy and process when it comes to things like this, it was a great reminder of just how incredibly valuable Mike Zarren is.
Yeah, that was one of the big takeaways. And I think I had a pretty good handle on that. And his impression around the league, whether it be from teams or even the league office itself. He's been the one who's kind of pitched that wheel idea for the draft, where rotates every through a 30-year cycle, I think it is, or something like that. And people either seem to love it or absolutely hate it. Which I think when you fall at either end of the spectrum, that's pretty good, right? So I think that was a major takeaway, was how well respected he is. The other piece is, and it didn't fit in the theme of it, but just how much people actually like him as a guy. Just in over and over and over again, I heard people say, what a great guy he is. He's just, he's a good guy to talk ideas with and different things, and that sort of stuff. And then the other part was, which I may do a follow up later, but how incredibly devoted he is to the Celtics. If Celtics fans may know, maybe they don't, but he was a season ticket holder. He's a lifelong fan of the team. He has had opportunities.
Got the starter jacket.
Yeah, exactly. The old school one. Yep. He's had opportunities to go potentially and either be a high ranking member or even run a team in the past. And he's always kind of, stayed loyal to Boston. There's somewhat of an assumption around the league that he's probably Ainge's predecessor, in waiting, as to whenever Ainge decides, I'm done doing this. I've been doing this basketball thing for a long time. I'm going to hang it up. That, Mike Zarren is probably the next guy in, but we'll see how that ultimately goes. But yeah, it was really cool to hear how many people spoke so highly of him.
Yeah, Ab and I have a wager. At least we talked about having a wager on whether Mike Zarren will eventually get another job somewhere else. And like you said right there, Keith, it would shock me. I'm not going to say it would, anything is possible in sports, obviously, but it would shock me if Zarren moved on somewhere else. As you said, he's had opportunities to do so and hasn't done that. Again, when you're a fan, like I get the attraction of running your own team. Like, don't get me wrong. But first off, I'm sure Mike is paid very handsomely for his job. I don't think money is really a huge issue, although, there is a bump up in pay when you get to that, GM status, no question. But if you have the ability to have a huge say, and obviously Mike has a big say in how this team is run, right? And the moves they make, the draft picks they make, he has a huge say in all of this stuff. I'm not sure if there's enough money out there or if he's the type of guy that's like, yeah, I want to run my own team to show everybody I can do that. No, it seems like Mike's like pretty content, being the assistant GM to his favorite franchise growing up. Like, that just seems like a pretty slam dunk deal to me. I don't think he's going anywhere, Keith, and it seems like you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do. And I think there is something to that is, once you're in a place where you want to be, as long as they're taking good care of you, well, why would you leave? And I think he's making more than enough money to live the life he wants to live. And it can be hard. We've heard these guys, whether it be a coach or sometimes it's even a player, how hard it is to go play somewhere else. I remember Paul Pierce always talking about how he hated the Celtics, and that eventually he, grew and became one of the all-time best Celtics. But yeah, I have to wonder if, Mike Zarren, we know he was in the running for the Philadelphia job at least once, if not twice. If he looks at that and says, man, all I've wanted to ever do is beat these guys, how do I go, work for them? I don't know. I've never asked him that personally, but I assume that's got to be at least part of the thinking.
There's probably a job security component to it too, right? Not in this sense. Like Mike Zarren, I'm guessing, based on his reputation, his work ethic, the way he's viewed around the NBA, he's never going to be hard up to find a job, obviously. But if you make that leap, if you leave the Celtics to go be the GM of another team, if things don't go well, you're going to lose your job. That's, the guys get fired far more often than they leave on their own or retire in that line of work. That's just the way it goes. Now, obviously, he could find another job immediately after losing that one, even if it's as an assistant GM. But does he want to move his family around the country repeatedly, potentially? Yeah. Or does he want to stay with a place that, like, we've all noted, like this was the boyhood team. This was the dream, I assume, to work for the Celtics. Maybe it was to play for the Celtics, but now to work for the Celtics. And, he's especially being number 2 to Ainge. Maybe it's another story if Ainge does walk away at some point and Mike Zarren is the successor. But right now, being number 2 to Ainge, like he is, it can't ever be a care in his world of I'm going to lose my job tomorrow. Like he has the ultimate job security. He is not going anywhere by I don't even know what would have to happen for Mike Zarren to lose his job with the Celtics. And I think that, Wyc Grousbeck and company ownership there's such an extreme sense of loyalty within the organization too, that that's why I don't even think people harp on the fact that, well, Danny Ainge has been around for almost 20 years. He's won 1 championship. And yes, he's rebuilt the team multiple times as well, but he's won 1 championship and it's Boston and our expectation is more. And we have to have higher than that. 1 title's not enough in 2 decades. Danny is not going anywhere on Wyc's, command. Danny will leave when Danny wants to leave. Danny has a job for life, so to speak. And I think the same is true of Mike Zarren. I think to some degree, unless things went horribly south, the same is true of Brad Stevens.